At-home COVID tests aren't just hard to find, they're also getting more expensive. Walmart and Kroger are both raising prices on the popular Binax Now rapid tests. The White House announced a deal with the two retailers and Amazon back in September to sell the testing kits at costs for $14. A box includes 2 tests, but that deal expired at the end of the year. Now, Walmart is raising its price to nearly $20, and Kroger listing its tests for about $24. Amazon doesn't have them right now. A spokesperson for Kroger tells CNBC the company fulfilled its commitment to sell the tests at a discounted price for 3 months. And a rep for Walmart says, unlike other retailers, it offered the lower cost through the holidays. Amazon has yet to respond to our request for comment. Today, the White House reaffirmed its plan to ship roughly 500 million tests for free to Americans who request them through an online site. The problem is, right now, there is no online site. It's not up, and there's no word on when it will be. But how reliable are those at-home tests anyway in this world of Omicron? A study released just today has some answers. It found most people who get infected with Omicron are contagious for several days before the rapid test can even detect the virus. Let's bring in Dr. Robbie Sicca now. He's one of the authors of that new study, also an anesthesiologist and senior health consultant. Doctor, thanks so much. The people you studied were positive on a PCR test, but when they took a rapid antigen test, they were negative.
Yeah, this study shows that the use of antigen tests for detection of COVID in asymptomatic individuals is not very effective. This test, the antigen test, did not identify people before they could spread COVID. And part of this is due to Omicron and the variant and the specific factors of this variant. But some of this is also due to the fact that antigen tests just don't work for early detection, particularly in asymptomatic individuals.
It's interesting. How useful then are these rapid tests if they don't detect the virus early? I asked, in my case, I have COVID right now. I'm COVID positive. And when I first started feeling what I thought were probably COVID symptoms, I got tested by a doctor, and the doctor said, you're negative. The next day, I tested myself, and I took the swab and put it in the back of my throat, and it tested positive once I got home. Does testing in the back of the throat make a difference? I mean, they do that in other countries.
Yeah, we have found that COVID, particularly this variant, Shepard, is more in the oral cavity than in the nasopharynx. And that probably lasts for the first 5 days of COVID. We're in the process of doing validation work to evaluate the use of combined oral nasal swabs, and we think that that's probably a better strategy. Additionally, people who have a sore throat probably should either do a saliva test or should seek out a place that will do an anterior nasal and oral swab. So you're absolutely right that there is a component here that we're missing positives because we're only relying on nasal swabs. There's no question that that's a concern.
Then why aren't we getting that advice? I simply don't understand it. I mean, anecdotal evidence is just simply that. But I can tell you this. I took that swab and put it in the back of my throat, twisted the thing, and it was positive. Had I known that 2 days earlier, I wouldn't have been walking around. I mean, I was wearing a mask when I was indoors and that sort of thing, but I don't know if I infected anybody. And if everyone were told you have a sore throat or your voice sounds like mine, swab the back of your throat, why won't they tell us that? It doesn't make sense.
I think you're absolutely speaking the same thing that so many other people in the country are speaking, Shepard. And you're absolutely right. We have to change the guidance to reflect what this variant is. The good news is we're doing this in real time. We're sharing this data. This is all stuff that was collected from December 1st to December 31st. So it's getting out here within 5 days of us collecting the data. We're sharing it with the CDC, the White House, the FDA. Everybody's looking at this data and using it to understand how we can address Omicron and how we can improve testing across the country. And I think the take-home message here is sole reliance on a negative test, just like you went through, is going to increase transmission. We can't just rely on, hey, you were negative by an antigen test and just go forward and go see grandma.
One last thing. If you're somebody who recently recovered from COVID, no more symptoms, but you got a workplace that requires weekly testing, does it make any sense to keep testing people who've recovered? Or is that just a waste of a test?
Well, I think we do need to test people until we understand how quickly people clear. There's a lot of people who are boosted. Not everybody's boosted. Not everybody's vaccinated in this country. And so that's the next phase of some of the research that we're going to be doing, is looking at the virus dynamics and how quickly people clear. So there is a role for antigen testing and for molecular testing like Q and Detect and Lucira. Those tests and how we use them are things that we really have to evaluate in real time, get that information out. And I hope that we have better answers here in the next couple of weeks. But right now, just relying on a negative antigen test to make any decision is probably not a great idea. A positive antigen test.
That makes sense. I didn't mean to interrupt. Again, you have COVID, you work from home. There's a long delay. I apologize. It's good of you. Thank you. Try swabbing the back of your throat if you can get a test. It worked for me.
Or a
Novak
test.
Djokovic, or a saliva test. It sounds like the same thing to me.